Captain Alexander Drake was sitting in his quarters, meticulously inspecting the intricate craftsmanship of his cherished pocket watch. The watch, passed down from generation to generation, reminded him of the fragility of time and the precious moments that slipped away unnoticed. His brief moment of reflection was interrupted by the shrill alert of the ship's intercom. Drake frowned, set the watch aside, and quickly strode to the command deck of the Valiant. The deck was alive with a flurry of activity as the crew scrambled to interpret the incoming distress signal. The ship's artificial intelligence, HAL-9, projected a bright blue holographic map of the sector. In the center, a blinking red light marked the distress call's origin. Drake's piercing blue eyes scanned the display before landing on Lieutenant Maya Stevens, his second in command. Her normally composed demeanor was replaced with a look of concern. "Captain," Stevens began, her voice steady but laced with unease, "we've received a distress call from an uncharted sector on the fringes of known space. The message was short but urgent. Help! It's dying!" Drake furrowed his brow, a skeptical glint in his eyes. "It's a trap, isn't it?" Stevens shook her head. "No, sir. The transmission has been verified. It's from Xyloxis, the last known habitat of a tyrant." Drake's heart quickened. The tyrants were the stuff of nightmares, colossal beasts that ruled entire systems with ruthless efficiency. Yet their numbers had dwindled over the centuries, leaving only whispers of their existence. The idea of one dying seemed improbable, almost sacrilegious. Drake turned to the navigation officer. "Set a course for Xyloxis," he ordered, his voice firm and unwavering. The engines of the Valiant roared to life, and the ship leapt into hyperspace, leaving behind a blur of starlight. As the ship sped through the cosmos, Drake couldn't shake a lingering feeling of unease. He wasn't sure if they were racing towards salvation or disaster, but his soldier's instincts urged him forward. As they approached Xyloxis, the desolation of the planet came into view. The surface was a barren wasteland, punctuated by jagged mountains and deep valleys that seemed to echo the cries of a forgotten past. The ship touched down near a massive cavern entrance, where a small team of researchers had set up a rudimentary camp. Drake and his team disembarked, greeted by Dr. Elena Morales, the lead researcher. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear and desperation. She ushered the team into the cavern without delay, her hands shaking as she pointed toward the darkness within. "You have to see it," Dr. Morales urged, her voice trembling. "It's in there." Drake's team moved cautiously into the cavern, their flashlights casting long shadows on the rugged walls. The air was thick with tension, and the deeper they descended, the more they felt a sense of dread. The faint sounds of a low, guttural growl echoed through the darkness, growing louder with each step. Finally, they reached a massive chamber, and there, lying before them, was the tyrant. The creature was enormous, with scales like obsidian and eyes that glowed with a faint, eerie light. It lay motionless, its massive form heaving with shallow breaths. Its once formidable body was now frail and weakened, covered in wounds and sores. The sight of the majestic beast, reduced to such a state, stirred something in Drake's heart. "We need to save it," Dr. Morales pleaded, her voice filled with a mix of desperation and hope. "It's the last of its kind." Drake looked at the creature, his soldier's instincts clashing with his sense of compassion. The tyrant's eyes met his, and for a moment he saw not a monster but a broken remnant of a once great species. Against all odds, Drake made his decision. "Let's patch it up," he commanded, his voice echoing in the cavern. The team quickly set to work, applying advanced medical treatments to the tyrant. Drake stood watch, his eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of danger. The atmosphere was tense, but a sense of urgency and determination filled the air. The team knew they were embarking on a dangerous mission, but they were driven by the possibility of saving a legend. As they worked, Drake felt an inexplicable connection to the creature. Despite its fearsome reputation, the tyrant was vulnerable and scared. Drake couldn't help but feel a sense of duty toward the beast. He was a soldier, trained to fight and protect, and now he found himself fighting for a creature that had once been the galaxy's greatest predator. The hours passed, and the team continued their efforts. The tyrant's breathing grew steadier, and its wounds began to heal. Drake watched over the creature, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. They had answered the call for help, but he knew that their journey was far from over. The galaxy was vast and filled with dangers, and the tyrant's fate was uncertain. As the first light of dawn crept into the cavern, Drake felt a renewed sense of purpose. The galaxy's most feared creature was dying, but with the help of a human soldier, it had a chance at survival. And for the first time in his life, Drake felt that he was part of something greater than himself. The sun barely penetrated the dense foliage of the jungle, and the air was thick with humidity as Captain Alexander Drake and his team continued to tend to the ailing tyrant. The sounds of the jungle filled the background as the massive creature lay in the depths of the cavern, breathing shallowly. The beast's obsidian scales glistened in the dim light, and its glowing eyes flickered weakly as it struggled to maintain consciousness. Drake and his team had made a small base camp near the cavern entrance, working tirelessly to stabilize the tyrant. Dr. Elena Morales, the lead researcher, moved quickly and efficiently, directing the team as they applied advanced medical treatments to the creature. Despite their best efforts, the situation was dire, and Drake could see the worry etched on Dr. Morales's face as she monitored the tyrant's condition. As they worked, the tension in the air was palpable. The jungle seemed to close in around them, and every sound echoed ominously. Drake's soldiers were alert, their eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of danger. The jungle was a hostile environment, and they knew that the tyrant's cry for help had not gone unnoticed. Drake moved closer to the tyrant, his heart pounding in his chest. The creature's massive body was covered in wounds and sores, evidence of a brutal battle that had left it weakened and vulnerable. As he looked into the creature's eyes, he saw a mixture of pain and fear that tugged at his heartstrings. "We need to move quickly," Dr. Morales said, her voice filled with urgency. "The tyrant's condition is critical, and we don't have much time." Drake nodded, his jaw set with determination. He knew that they were racing against the clock, and every moment was precious. The team worked tirelessly, applying advanced medical treatments and monitoring the tyrant's vital signs. The air was thick with tension as they struggled to save the creature. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the cavern, and Drake's soldiers sprang to attention. The sound of footsteps filled the air as a group of alien warriors appeared, their weapons drawn and their eyes filled with malice. The Scrav, a fierce and ruthless species, had come to claim the tyrant as their own. "Stand down!" Drake shouted, his voice echoing through the cavern. "We're here to help!" The Scrav leader sneered, his eyes glinting with malice. "The tyrant is ours," he growled, his voice filled with disdain. "It belongs to us." Drake's heart pounded in his chest as he stood his ground, his hand resting on his weapon. The air was thick with tension as the two sides faced off, each unwilling to back down. The Scrav were known for their brutality, and Drake knew that they would stop at nothing to claim the tyrant as their trophy. The air was thick with the scent of impending violence as the Scrav warriors advanced, their weapons gleaming in the dim light. Drake's soldiers stood ready, their weapons drawn and their eyes locked on the enemy. The cavern seemed to hold its breath as the two sides prepared for battle. Just as the tension reached its peak, a loud roar echoed through the cavern, and the tyrant stirred, its massive body heaving with a newfound strength. The creature's eyes glowed brightly as it let out a deafening roar, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The Scrav hesitated, their eyes wide with fear as the tyrant rose to its full height, its massive body towering over them. The creature's roar was deafening, and the ground shook as it unleashed its fury. The Scrav, faced with the wrath of the galaxy's most feared creature, quickly retreated, their cries of terror echoing through the cavern. Drake's soldiers cheered as the Scrav fled, their spirits lifted by the tyrant's show of strength. The creature, once weak and vulnerable, now stood tall and powerful, its eyes glowing with a fierce determination. Drake moved closer to the tyrant, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and awe. The creature's eyes met his, and for a moment they shared a silent understanding. The tyrant, once a feared predator, was now a creature in need of protection, and Drake knew that he had made the right choice in helping it. As the sun set and the jungle grew quiet, Drake and his team continued their efforts to save the tyrant. The air was thick with tension and uncertainty, but they knew that they were fighting for something greater than themselves. The galaxy's most feared creature was dying, but with their help, it had a chance at survival. And for the first time, Drake felt a sense of purpose that filled him with a fierce determination to succeed. Captain Alexander Drake awoke to the sound of distant thunder rolling across the horizon. The jungle surrounding the cavern was alive with the buzz of insects and the occasional cries of unseen creatures. The Valiant's camp was quiet, with most of the crew asleep, exhausted from the long hours spent tending to the injured tyrant. Only a few soldiers remained on guard, their eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of danger. Drake rose from his makeshift bed and stretched, feeling the familiar ache in his muscles that came from days of relentless action. He made his way to the mouth of the cavern where Dr. Elena Morales was sitting, staring out into the jungle with a look of deep concentration on her face. "How's it doing?" Drake asked, his voice low and rough with fatigue. Dr. Morales glanced up at him, her face etched with worry. "It's stable for now," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "But it's not out of the woods yet." Drake nodded, his jaw set with determination. He knew that the tyrant's survival was far from certain, and the weight of the task ahead pressed heavily on his shoulders. He moved closer to the creature, his heart pounding as he looked into its glowing eyes. The tyrant was awake, its massive body heaving with shallow breaths. Its scales glistened in the dim light, and its eyes were filled with a mixture of pain and fear. Drake reached out a hand, touching the creature's rough skin. "You're going to be okay," he murmured, his voice filled with a mixture of hope and determination. "We're going to help you." The tyrant's eyes flickered, and for a moment, Drake thought he saw a glimmer of understanding in the creature's gaze. The connection was brief, but it filled him with a fierce sense of purpose. He knew that they were fighting for something greater than themselves, and the thought gave him the strength to carry on. As the day wore on, the team continued their efforts to save the tyrant. The jungle around them was alive with the sounds of nature, and the air was thick with tension. The Scrav attack had left the team on edge, and they knew that more dangers lay ahead. Drake moved through the camp, checking on his soldiers and offering words of encouragement. He knew that morale was low, and he did his best to lift the spirits of his crew. The men and women under his command were a tight-knit group, and their loyalty and bravery filled him with pride. As he moved through the camp, he found Lieutenant Maya Stevens sitting near the edge of the jungle, her eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. She looked up as he approached, her face etched with worry. "Do you think we're doing the right thing, Captain?" she asked, her voice filled with doubt. "The tyrant is a dangerous creature. What if it turns on us?" Drake shook his head, his expression firm. "We have to try," he said, his voice filled with conviction. "It's the last of its kind, and it deserves a chance." Stevens nodded, her face softening with understanding. "I hope you're right," she said, her voice filled with uncertainty. As the day turned to night, the camp settled into an uneasy silence. The team took turns keeping watch, their eyes scanning the jungle for any sign of danger. The night was dark and filled with the sounds of unseen creatures, and the air was thick with the scent of rain. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the jungle, and the team sprang to their feet, their weapons drawn and their eyes wide with fear. The ground shook as a group of Scrav warriors emerged from the shadows, their eyes gleaming with malice. The battle was fierce and chaotic, with the Scrav attacking with a ferocity that took the team by surprise. Drake fought with a determination born of desperation, his mind focused on the safety of his crew and the injured tyrant. The air was thick with the sounds of battle, and the ground shook as the two sides clashed. Amidst the chaos, Drake found himself face to face with a Scrav warrior, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. The warrior lunged at him, his blade gleaming in the dim light. Drake dodged the attack, his movements quick and precise. He fought with a skill born of years of training, his mind focused and his heart filled with a fierce sense of purpose. The battle raged on, with both sides fighting with a desperation born of survival. The jungle echoed with the sounds of battle, and the ground shook as the two sides clashed. Finally, the Scrav retreated, their cries of defeat echoing through the jungle. The team stood victorious, their hearts pounding with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. The air was thick with the scent of blood and sweat, and the ground was littered with the bodies of the fallen. Drake moved to the tyrant, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and hope. The creature lay motionless, its massive body heaving with shallow breaths. The air was thick with tension as the team gathered around, their faces etched with worry. Dr. Morales moved closer, her hands shaking as she examined the creature. The tyrant's eyes flickered, and for a moment Drake thought he saw a glimmer of understanding in the creature's gaze. The connection was brief, but it filled him with a fierce sense of purpose. "We did it," Drake murmured, his voice filled with a mixture of relief and determination. "We saved it." The team cheered, their voices echoing through the jungle. The galaxy's most feared creature was dying, but with the help of a human soldier, it had a chance at survival. And for the first time, Drake felt a sense of purpose that filled him with a fierce determination to succeed. Captain Alexander Drake stared into the obsidian eyes of the tyrant, the massive creature now looking considerably stronger after their efforts to stabilize it. The cavern was quiet, filled only with the sounds of the tyrant's steady breathing and the occasional crackle from the medical equipment. The team was on edge, still reeling from the Scrav attack the night before. Despite their best efforts, Drake knew that the tyrant's survival was far from guaranteed. Drake's thoughts were interrupted by a sharp ping from the Valiant's comm system. The ship's artificial intelligence, HAL-9, spoke up with its crisp, monotone voice. "Captain, incoming transmission from the Zoran Dominion. They are requesting immediate audience." Drake's brow furrowed as he looked at Lieutenant Maya Stevens, who was standing by his side. "The Zoran Dominion? What could they want?" Stevens shrugged, her expression tense. "They're probably here for the same reason as the Scrav, sir. The tyrant." Drake nodded grimly. The Zoran Dominion was a powerful alien empire with a reputation for ruthlessness. Their interest in the tyrant spelled trouble, and Drake knew that they couldn't let their guard down. Drake activated the comms, and a holographic image of General Valen, the Zoran commander, appeared in the cavern. Valen was imposing, with bright silver skin and piercing red eyes that seemed to look straight through Drake. "Captain Drake," Valen said, his voice cold and commanding, "you are harboring a dangerous creature. The tyrant must die. It is a relic of chaos, and it has no place in this galaxy." Drake stood his ground, his jaw set with determination. "The tyrant is defenseless," he replied, his voice firm. "It deserves a chance to live." Valen sneered, his eyes flashing with contempt. "You are a fool, Captain," he growled. "The tyrant is a monster, and it will turn on you the moment it has the chance." Before Drake could respond, the tyrant stirred, its massive body rising to its full height. It let out a deafening roar, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Valen drew his blade, but before he could strike, the tyrant's eyes flared and it blasted him back with a burst of energy. The cavern erupted into chaos as Valen's forces attacked, their weapons blazing with bright blue energy. Drake's soldiers responded with equal ferocity, their blasters firing in rapid succession as they defended the tyrant. The air was thick with the sounds of battle, and the ground shook as the two sides clashed. Drake fought valiantly, his movements quick and precise as he took down enemy after enemy. The tyrant joined the fray, its massive body moving with a newfound strength as it defended itself and the humans who had saved it. The creature's roars echoed through the cavern, shaking the ground and sending tremors through the hearts of their enemies. The battle was fierce, with both sides fighting with a desperation born of survival. The Zoran forces were relentless, their attacks swift and brutal. But the humans and the tyrant fought with a determination that could not be matched, their movements precise and coordinated as they repelled the invaders. Drake found himself face to face with Valen, their eyes locked in a fierce gaze. The Zoran general's expression was filled with hatred as he lunged at Drake, his blade gleaming in the dim light. Drake dodged the attack, his movements quick and precise. He fought with a skill born of years of training, his mind focused and his heart filled with a fierce sense of purpose. The battle raged on, with the cavern echoing with the sounds of conflict. The ground shook as the two sides clashed, their movements swift and deadly. The tyrant fought with a ferocity that could not be matched, its powerful body moving with a grace and strength that left their enemies trembling. Finally, the Zoran forces retreated, their cries of defeat echoing through the cavern. Drake's soldiers cheered, their hearts pounding with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. The air was thick with the scent of battle, and the ground was littered with the bodies of the fallen. Drake turned to the tyrant, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and awe. The creature's eyes met his, and for a moment they shared a silent understanding. The tyrant, once a feared predator, was now a creature in need of protection, and Drake knew that he had made the right choice in helping it. As the sun set and the cavern grew quiet, Drake and his team continued their efforts to save the tyrant. The air was thick with tension and uncertainty, but they knew that they were fighting for something greater than themselves. The galaxy's most feared creature was dying, but with their help, it had a chance at survival. And for the first time, Drake felt a sense of purpose that filled him with a fierce determination to succeed. In the aftermath of the battle, the air was filled with the acrid scent of burned ozone, and the ground was littered with debris from the skirmish. Captain Alexander Drake's heart raced as he surveyed the scene, his senses on high alert for any sign of lingering danger. The Zoran Dominion's forces had retreated, but the shadow of their threat still hung heavily over the camp. The tyrant, now significantly stronger and more vibrant, lay on the ground, its obsidian scales shimmering in the fading light of the day. The creature's glowing eyes met Drake's, and for a brief moment the captain felt a strange sense of kinship with the formidable beast. Dr. Elena Morales rushed over, her face etched with worry as she checked on the tyrant's condition. The creature, though healing, was still gravely ill. The team had managed to stabilize it for now, but Dr. Morales' expression told Drake that their work was far from over. "We need to act fast, Captain," she said, her voice trembling with urgency. "I've identified the source of the tyrant's illness. It's a parasitic organism embedded deep in its heart. If we don't remove it soon, the tyrant won't survive." Drake's brow furrowed as he considered their options. The tyrant's massive body presented a formidable challenge, and the surgery required to remove the parasite was delicate and complex. The team's resources were limited, and the jungle environment posed numerous risks. "I'll do it," Drake said, his voice firm and resolute. The team stared at him in shock, their expressions a mix of surprise and concern. Drake was a skilled soldier, but he lacked medical training. The task ahead was daunting, and the risks were high. "Are you sure, Captain?" Lieutenant Maya Stevens asked, her voice filled with worry. "This isn't a simple operation. One wrong move, and you could kill the tyrant." Drake nodded, his jaw set with determination. "I have a steady hand, and I know how to stay calm under pressure," he replied. "I can do this." With Dr. Morales' guidance, Drake prepared for the surgery. The air was thick with tension as the team worked to set up a makeshift operating theater in the cavern. The tyrant's massive body lay still, its breathing shallow as it waited for the procedure to begin. Drake took a deep breath as he donned a pair of surgical gloves, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. The weight of the task ahead pressed heavily on his shoulders, but he knew that he had to try. The tyrant's survival depended on him, and the thought filled him with a fierce sense of purpose. The surgery was tense and nerve-wracking. Drake's hands were steady as he carefully navigated the intricate procedure, his movements precise and deliberate. Dr. Morales guided him every step of the way, her voice calm and reassuring as she talked him through the complex operation. The cavern was silent as the team watched, their eyes fixed on the scene before them. The air was thick with tension as Drake worked, his focus unwavering as he moved closer to the parasite embedded in the tyrant's heart. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Drake successfully extracted the parasite. The team erupted in cheers as the tyrant's breathing grew steadier, its strength returning. The creature's eyes flickered open, and for a moment, Drake thought he saw a glimmer of gratitude in the tyrant's gaze. Drake stepped back, his heart pounding with a mix of relief and exhaustion. The weight of the task had taken its toll, but the sight of the tyrant, now healing and stronger, filled him with a sense of accomplishment. The team worked tirelessly to ensure the tyrant's recovery, and as the hours passed, the creature grew stronger and more vibrant. The atmosphere in the cavern shifted, filled with a renewed sense of hope and determination. The galaxy's most feared creature was no longer on the brink of death. And for the first time, Drake felt a sense of triumph that filled him with a fierce determination to see the mission through to the end. As night fell, the jungle grew quiet and the team settled into an uneasy rest. The air was thick with the sounds of nature and the ground was cool and damp. The team knew that their journey was far from over, but they also knew that they had taken a crucial step towards saving the tyrant. Drake sat by the cavern entrance, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. The battle with the Zoran Dominion had left its mark, and the looming threat of future conflicts weighed heavily on his mind. But as he looked into the cavern and saw the tyrant, now resting peacefully, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had fought bravely and succeeded against all odds. The tyrant, once a feared predator, was now a creature deserving of their protection. And for the first time, Drake felt that they were part of something greater than themselves. The galaxy's most feared creature was dying, but with their help, it had a chance at survival. And for that, Drake was determined to fight until the end. The following day, the Valiant's camp was buzzing with a newfound sense of hope. The successful surgery on the tyrant had filled Captain Alexander Drake and his team with optimism. The massive creature was on the mend, its strength slowly returning, and the mood in the camp reflected this positive turn of events. However, as the sun began to set, a fleet of ships appeared on the horizon, casting dark shadows over the jungle and threatening the fragile peace they had achieved. Drake's instincts flared as he surveyed the incoming fleet. The ships belonged to a notorious group of bounty hunters, feared throughout the galaxy for their ruthless efficiency and bloodlust. Their leader, a grizzled veteran known as Scarface Jackson, was notorious for his cruelty and was known to have a particular obsession with rare and dangerous creatures. "Captain, we've got company," Lieutenant Maya Stevens said, her voice tense as she watched the fleet's approach. Drake's eyes narrowed as he watched the ships descend. The bounty hunters would stop at nothing to capture the tyrant, and he knew that their arrival spelled trouble. He turned to his team, his voice firm and authoritative. "Prepare for battle," he ordered, his jaw set with determination. "We can't let them take the tyrant!" The air was thick with tension as the team sprang into action, their weapons at the ready as they prepared to defend the camp. The ground shook as the bounty hunters' ships touched down, and the sounds of heavy machinery filled the air as they disembarked, their weapons gleaming in the dim light. Scarface Jackson, a towering figure with a face scarred from countless battles, stepped forward, his eyes filled with malice as he surveyed the camp. He sneered as he looked at Drake, his expression filled with contempt. "You must be Captain Drake," Jackson growled, his voice rough and menacing. "I've heard about you. You've been protecting the tyrant. How noble." Drake's jaw tightened as he stared down the infamous bounty hunter. "We won't let you take it," he said, his voice firm and unwavering. "The tyrant is under our protection." Jackson laughed, his voice echoing through the jungle. "We'll see about that," he sneered, drawing his blaster. "The tyrant belongs to me." The bounty hunters attacked with a ferocity that took Drake's team by surprise. Their weapons blazed with bright red energy, and the air was thick with the sounds of battle. The ground shook as the two sides clashed, their movements swift and deadly. Drake fought with a determination born of desperation, his mind focused on the safety of his crew and the injured tyrant. The bounty hunters were relentless, their attacks brutal and precise. But the humans fought back with equal ferocity, their movements coordinated and effective as they defended their ground. Amidst the chaos, the tyrant stirred, its massive body rising with a newfound strength. It let out a deafening roar, shaking the ground and sending tremors through the hearts of their enemies. The creature's eyes blazed with fury as it unleashed its wrath on the attackers, its powerful body moving with a grace and strength that left their enemies trembling. The battle raged on, with both sides fighting with a desperation born of survival. The air was thick with the scent of blood and sweat, and the ground was littered with the bodies of the fallen. The tyrant fought with a ferocity unmatched by any creature in the galaxy, its roars echoing through the jungle as it defended itself and the humans who had saved it. Drake found himself face to face with Jackson, their eyes locked in a fierce gaze. The bounty hunter's expression was filled with hatred as he lunged at Drake, his blade gleaming in the dim light. Drake dodged the attack, his movements quick and precise. He fought with a skill born of years of training, his mind focused and his heart filled with a fierce sense of purpose. The battle was fierce, with the jungle echoing with the sounds of conflict. The ground shook as the two sides clashed, their movements swift and deadly. The tyrant fought with a ferocity that could not be matched, its powerful body moving with a grace and strength that left their enemies trembling. Finally, the bounty hunters retreated, their cries of defeat echoing through the jungle. Drake's soldiers cheered, their hearts pounding with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. The air was thick with the scent of battle, and the ground was littered with the bodies of the fallen. Drake turned to the tyrant, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and awe. The creature's eyes met his, and for a moment they shared a silent understanding. The tyrant, once a feared predator, was now a creature deserving of their protection, and Drake knew that he had made the right choice in helping it. As night fell, the jungle grew quiet, and the team settled into an uneasy rest. The air was thick with the sounds of nature, and the ground was cool and damp. The team knew that their journey was far from over, but they also knew that they had taken a crucial step towards saving the tyrant. Drake sat by the cavern entrance, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. The battle with the bounty hunters had left its mark, and the looming threat of future conflicts weighed heavily on his mind. But as he looked into the cavern and saw the tyrant, now resting peacefully, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had fought bravely and succeeded against all odds. The tyrant, once a feared predator, was now a creature deserving of their protection, and for the first time, Drake felt that they were part of something greater than themselves. The galaxy's most feared creature was dying, but with their help, it had a chance at survival, and for that, Drake was determined to fight until the end. The dawn after the battle with the bounty hunters broke clear and quiet, but the air was heavy with the echoes of the recent conflict. Captain Alexander Drake sat outside the cavern, his eyes scanning the horizon. The jungle around him was vibrant, yet his mind was burdened with thoughts of what lay ahead. The tyrant was recovering, but the threats against it were multiplying. Drake knew that he needed a plan to secure the creature's future, or it would face endless danger. Drake's thoughts were interrupted by the familiar voice of Dr. Elena Morales. She approached with a look of resolve in her eyes. "Captain," she began, her voice steady, "we can't keep the tyrant here. This planet is too exposed. We need to move it somewhere safer, somewhere where it can live in peace." Drake nodded, his jaw set with determination. He had been considering the same idea. The tyrant's existence had become too well known, and the recent attacks proved that as long as it stayed on Xyloxis, it would never be safe. "But where do we take it?" Lieutenant Maya Stevens asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "The galaxy is vast, but there aren't many places where a creature like this can live undisturbed." Drake pondered the question for a moment, then turned to Hal 9. "Hal, what uninhabited planets are nearby that could support a creature like the tyrant?" Hal 9's voice filled the air, calm and analytical. "There is a planet 2 light-years away known as Veritus Prime. It is uninhabited and has a suitable environment for the tyrant." Drake stood, his decision made. "Then that's where we'll go," he said, his voice firm. "We need to move quickly, before more bounty hunters or hostile forces arrive." The team sprang into action, preparing the tyrant for the journey. The creature, now stronger and more alert, seemed to sense what was happening. It let out a low, rumbling growl as the team gently guided it toward the ship. The process was tense, but the team worked together seamlessly, their actions coordinated and efficient. As the Valiant lifted off, Drake felt a sense of relief wash over him. The ship hummed as it ascended into the sky, carrying the tyrant to a new home. The journey to Veritus Prime was quiet, filled with an unspoken tension as the team contemplated the uncertain future. When they arrived at Veritus Prime, the planet was a verdant paradise, filled with lush forests and clear blue skies. The tyrant looked out over its new home, its eyes wide with wonder. The team watched as the creature explored its new surroundings, its massive body moving with a newfound freedom. Drake felt a sense of satisfaction as he watched the tyrant roam. He knew that they had made the right choice in relocating the creature, but as he looked out over the landscape, he also felt a sense of loss. The tyrant, once a feared predator, was now a creature deserving of protection. Drake had grown attached to the beast, and the thought of leaving it behind filled him with a sense of sorrow. As the team prepared to depart, Drake walked over to the tyrant. The creature looked at him with its glowing eyes, and for a moment they shared a silent understanding. The tyrant let out a low growl, and Drake felt a surge of emotion. He knew that they had formed a bond, one born out of shared struggle and survival. Drake looked at his team, his voice filled with a mix of pride and sadness. "It's time to go," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. The team nodded, their faces etched with a mixture of relief and sorrow. The Valiant lifted off, leaving the tyrant behind on its new home. As they ascended into the sky, Drake felt a sense of peace. They had saved the galaxy's most feared creature, giving it a chance at a new life. But he also felt a sense of loss, knowing that they were leaving behind something that had become important to them. Back aboard the Valiant, the crew celebrated their success, but Drake's mind was already turning to the future. The galaxy was vast, and dangers lurked around every corner. But for now he felt a sense of satisfaction. They had faced incredible odds and emerged victorious, and for that he was proud. The tyrant was free, and they had made the right choice. And for the first time, Drake felt that they were part of something greater than themselves, a legacy of courage and compassion that would live on. With the tyrant safely established on Veritus Prime, the crew of the Valiant returned to their duties, but the memory of their mission lingered in their hearts. Captain Alexander Drake stood on the bridge, looking out at the vast expanse of space before them. The ship was on a new course, patrolling the fringes of known space, but Drake's thoughts kept drifting back to the jungle planet and the incredible creature they had saved. Word of the humans' bravery spread quickly throughout the galaxy. News networks and information relays buzzed with reports of Captain Drake and his team, who had faced impossible odds to save the last of the tyrants. The tale became a legend, a story of courage, compassion, and an unlikely alliance that resonated across worlds. Drake, however, remained focused on his duties. The Valiant was now receiving communications from allies and diplomats who praised their actions, but also warned of potential retaliation from those who saw the tyrant as a threat. The Zoran Dominion and the Scrav were not the only factions interested in the creature, and Drake knew that they had to remain vigilant. "Captain, we've received a message from the Galactic Council," Lieutenant Maya Stevens said, her voice filled with excitement as she handed Drake a datapad. "They're commending our actions and inviting us to a formal ceremony." Drake took the datapad and glanced at the message. The Galactic Council's praise was an honor, but his thoughts were still with the tyrant. He knew that their actions had saved the creature, but he also knew that their decision had painted a target on their backs. "Thank you, Lieutenant," he said, his voice calm. "But our job isn't done. We need to ensure that the tyrant remains safe." Drake's determination resonated with his crew, who shared his commitment to their mission. The Valiant continued its patrols, but the shadow of their previous mission loomed over them. They knew that their actions had sparked a chain of events that would have far-reaching consequences, and they were prepared to face whatever came next. As the ship patrolled the fringes of known space, the crew encountered numerous threats and challenges. Pirate fleets, rogue mercenaries, and hostile alien forces all sought to capitalize on the newfound fame of the Valiant and its crew. But through it all, Drake and his team remained steadfast, their courage and resolve unwavering. During one of their patrols, the Valiant received a distress signal from a nearby planet. The crew quickly mobilized, expecting another dangerous confrontation, but what they found was a small village under attack by a group of marauders. The humans fought bravely, and the villagers, recognizing them as the heroes who had saved the tyrant, rallied behind them. Together, they defeated the marauders and restored peace to the village. The villagers, grateful for their help, presented Drake with a small token of appreciation, a carved statuette of the tyrant, symbolizing their admiration for his actions. The gesture touched Drake deeply, and he realized that their mission had inspired hope and courage in those who needed it most. The Valiant continued its journey, and the legend of Captain Drake and the tyrant grew. Stories of their bravery and compassion spread throughout the galaxy, inspiring countless others to stand up against fear and oppression. The crew faced many challenges, but they also experienced moments of triumph and joy that solidified their bond. Drake often thought of the Tyrant, wondering how the creature was faring on Veritus Prime. He knew that they had done the right thing, but he also knew that their actions had set off a series of events that would shape the future of the galaxy. The thought filled him with a sense of pride, knowing that they were part of something greater than themselves. As the Valiant sailed through the stars, the crew celebrated their victories and mourned their losses, but through it all, they remained united in their mission. The galaxy's most feared creature was now free, thanks to their actions, and the legend of Captain Drake and his team lived on. Drake stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars with a sense of satisfaction. They had faced incredible odds and emerged victorious, and for that, he was proud. The Tyrant was free, and they had made the right choice. And for the first time, Drake felt that they were part of something greater than themselves, a legacy of courage and compassion that would live on for generations to come. The legend of the galaxy's most feared creature and the human soldier who saved it became a beacon of hope and inspiration. And as the Valiant sailed through the cosmos, Captain Alexander Drake knew that they were ready for whatever came next, united in their mission and determined to protect those who needed them most. In the months following the rescue of the Tyrant, the Valiant and her crew found themselves at the center of the galaxy's attention. Captain Alexander Drake became a celebrated hero, praised for his bravery and compassion. However, Drake remained grounded, understanding that the true victory lay not in accolades but in the survival of a species once feared and nearly wiped out. Drake sat in his quarters, his mind heavy with thoughts of what the future held. The galaxy was vast, filled with both wonders and dangers, and the Valiant was tasked with patrolling its fringes. Drake's focus, however, remained on the Tyrant. The creature had become a symbol of resilience, and Drake felt a responsibility to ensure its continued survival. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts, signaling an incoming message. Drake glanced at the comms panel and saw that it was from Dr. Elena Morales. The scientist's face appeared on the screen, her eyes bright with excitement. "Captain, I've been monitoring the Tyrant on Veritus Prime," she said, her voice filled with enthusiasm. "It's thriving! The planet is perfect for its needs, and it's even begun to establish a territory." Drake smiled, a rare sight, as he listened to the good news. The success of their mission filled him with a sense of pride and relief. "That's great news, Dr. Morales," he replied, his voice warm. "I'm glad to hear it's doing well." Drake felt a sense of closure as he ended the call. The Tyrant's survival was assured, and the crew's mission had been a resounding success. But as he sat in the quiet of his quarters, he knew that their journey was far from over. The galaxy was filled with countless other species and planets that needed their help, and the Valiant was ready to continue its mission. The bridge was bustling with activity as the crew prepared for their next assignment. The Valiant had been tasked with exploring a newly discovered sector of space, a region filled with unknown dangers and potential allies. Drake looked out at the stars, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. Lieutenant Maya Stevens stood by his side, her expression filled with anticipation. "Ready for our next adventure, Captain?" she asked, her voice eager. Drake nodded, his jaw set with determination. "Always," he replied, his voice firm. "The galaxy isn't going to explore itself." The Valiant set course for the unknown sector, its engines roaring to life as it leapt into hyperspace. The crew was filled with excitement and anticipation, eager to see what lay beyond the stars. The galaxy was vast, and their mission was clear: to explore, to protect, and to serve. As the ship traveled through the cosmos, Drake felt a sense of peace. The galaxy's most feared creature was now thriving, and the legend of their bravery and compassion lived on. The future was uncertain, but the crew was ready for whatever came next. On a distant planet, the Tyrant roamed freely, its powerful body moving gracefully through the lush forests of Veritus Prime. The creature was no longer a monster, but a guardian of its new home. And in the stars above, Captain Alexander Drake and his crew sailed through the cosmos, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The legend of the galaxy's most feared creature and the human soldier who saved it became a beacon of hope, a story of courage and compassion that inspired generations to come. The Valiant and her crew continued their mission, exploring the vast reaches of space and protecting those who needed them most. As the ship sailed into the unknown, Drake looked out at the stars with a sense of purpose. The galaxy was vast and filled with wonders, and he knew that their journey was just beginning. Together, they faced the future with courage and determination, ready to write the next chapter of their incredible adventure. The galaxy's most feared creature was no longer alone, and for the first time, Drake felt that they were part of something greater than themselves, a legacy of bravery, compassion, and hope that would live on for generations to come. And as the Valiant sailed through the cosmos, Captain Alexander Drake knew that they were ready for whatever came next, united in their mission and determined to make a difference in the galaxy.